All right, hey, it's Doug Cunnington from Niche Site Project, and I'm sitting with Jim. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
And we obviously coordinated today, and we wore gray shirts and shaved our heads, so that was not intentional, actually, but a funny coincidence. So this will be just sort of a casual conversation. Jim and I often meet at this coffee shop down the street on Wednesdays. And we just talk about niche site stuff, and we have coffee and we work a little bit. It's good to get out of the house. I think, Jim, do you normally work like right here?
Yep.
So yeah, it's good to get out of the house every now and then and like talk to other human people. So today the topic will be content and where to get content and essentially what happens. And I think you may be at this point. You've written a lot of content on your site, thousands and thousands, and probably 20, 30,000 words or something like that. And it gets a little old and it takes up a lot of time. So it's really good to hire writers because there's tons of them out there, and I think it's a good thing to do to sort of scale up. So can you tell us a little bit about where you are with hiring freelancers, or just where you're at right now?
Well, typically, I've just kind of been referencing some different job boards, Upwork, things like that. Just really topical searching, finding where the freelancers kind of hang out and approaching them that way. Really kind of formulating an advertisement just for my needs, just for what I'm looking for in terms of each individual article. And so it's really just kind of a take it as it comes kind of scenario where as soon as I get a reply, I'm going to reply back, see what they want in terms of payment or what they want to write for and this, that, and the other thing. So it's really just kind of a fly by the seat of my pants, figure it out.
Okay. And then, well, because of the fact that we're talking about it right now, I know it hasn't gone perfectly so far.
Right.
So what issues have you found?
Upwork is tough because there is so many writers there looking for work that you're bound to come across a couple lesser quality writers who just want to make 10 or 15 bucks or whatever you're asking in terms of your article price. And they're quick and they can generate an article and really crank out content, but then you're stuck editing for 2 hours, 3 hours just trying to get it to format it the right way. And if they're non-native speakers, then you're ending up rewriting sentences and fixing structure and all this sort of stuff. And so that's kind of been one of the big headaches. It's kind of the age-old adage, kind of get what you pay for. And so I'm trying to stick within a certain budget. I want to, it's in my best interest to pay as little as I can to get as good a content as I can. And so there's kind of this mix where you're eventually going to cross and find that sweet spot. And so the biggest problem right now is just finding good content and people who want ongoing work, right? Because I have a lot of keywords that I want written for. I don't mind writing, but now for the site I've got well over 200 keywords that I want written for.
Okay, that's a lot of content. So basically it's been hard to find people that write well, and you're even willing to pay more. You're having trouble finding the right person. And all the stuff that Jim was mentioning before, it's not hypothetical, right? You actually hired some people and you've had to edit for a couple hours, and it probably would have been almost the same amount of time if you just wrote it yourself.
Right. At the end of the day, you are getting 1,000, 1,200 words back, and so you get a lot of content, you can kind of work with it, but it ends up being like Play-Doh. It comes out of the can and it's just kind of sitting there in a blob, and so it's up to you to kind of mold it and shape it into the form you want and get it up on the site. Versus I've worked with one woman recently, and she made some really great content, but it was more expensive than I really wanted to pay, especially when I'm talking about a couple hundred keywords. Extrapolate that out and you're going to pay thousands of dollars at her prices. But her content was good. I had to format it and put my links in there in certain places, and I could publish it.
Okay.
So 2 hours, or 2 articles took me 2 hours probably, versus one article took me 2 hours from some of the lower quality writers.
Sure. Okay. So if you could do, if the scenario was perfect, how would you, this is a horribly formed question, but Basically, if you could have it an ideal situation with writers, what would it be like?
I'd find maybe 3 or 4 writers who can generate great content and produce it fairly regularly at a good price. And that's something I'm still kind of struggling with too, is finding the right price to pay for good quality content. The woman I worked with recently wanted $15 for 500 words. And so it's really, as we all know, if you want to start outranking some competition, you have to generate more content and all this. And so it's really, I'm shooting for that 1,000-word spot. So
Okay.
$30 for an article is
Right.
not really in the wheelhouse.
Okay. And then, so that, if my math is correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, the math is, that would be 3 cents a word, right?
Mhm.
Or a 1,000-word article is $30, which you did say. Okay. So that's a good like baseline to talk about and start the conversation, because it all comes down to the budgeting aspect of it, right?
Right.
Because you want the best quality, or actually you would settle for like pretty good quality,
Sure.
most likely.
Sure.
So some pretty good quality that you don't have to spend too much time editing, and for a reasonable price, which I think like a reasonable price for a writer is probably like 1,000 words for $20. I usually pay less than that, more like 1,000 words for like say $14 to $17
Sure.
roughly. Writers will also sort of relax on their pricing if you can give them ongoing work.
Right.
What they don't like is looking for new jobs all the time.
Right.
So then they're just wasting their time looking at all the jobs on Upwork. So if you can give them consistent work, then they're pretty happy.
Sure.
So if you laid out a situation where, you would ask for 2 articles a week for like a few months, a lot of people would be really happy with that,
Mhm.
and they would come down on the price.
Sure. And I have an email out to the woman I've been working with who wanted more than I really wanted to pay. And I approached her about that. I asked her what her prices would be for a bulk order. I'd give her a couple hundred keywords, or send her what I was thinking. I'd send her 20 a month, expecting 3 to 5 articles back every week. And I would take them as they come and pay as they come, sort of thing. And so I would give her ongoing work and that sort of thing, in the hopes that she would come down. But I haven't. She's in the UK.
Gotcha.
Wales, and so I haven't shown the time difference. She's asleep now, so
Right. Okay.
back.
So, one of the other, and I guess I'll just explain what I do, and then you could ask questions along the way. You just interrupt. So I try to hire people that are starting out. They're new to Upwork, and they want to get a good review.
Sure.
So and I'll send you all the stuff, and then perhaps share some stuff with you. But essentially, in the headline, the title of the job posting, I'll say, ghostwriter needed for a blog. And then I'll put something like basically 5-star review or something to that effect. And note that it's a trial job. In
Sure.
the description, and basically what I want to do is test out writers. So you can spend time looking over what they've written before. You can take a look at anything that they want to tell you, which may or may not be true.
Right.
So I kind of ignore what they tell me.
Right.
At one point, when I first started hiring people, I actually interviewed them, and I realized that was like just a waste of time. And I was just used to it from a corporate job. Like, it makes sense
Sure.
to talk to someone, but in this scenario, it's actually easier just to hire them. And it's actually cheaper just to hire them and pay them $10 and see
Right.
what they can do.
Right.
So I'll put that job posting up. I have a pretty specific, I just use a template, right? So that's why, it's easy if you use a template. You just fill in a couple blanks, but it says things like, this is potentially for ongoing work. You won't be credited specifically. This is a ghost writing situation. I'll provide you with a topic. You need to be a native English speaker, and a couple other items like that. In fact, I forgot in the headline, I also put native English speaker only.
Sure.
And really emphasize that. If you don't, then you'll end up with a lot of people that are not native English speakers. And I actually have started emphasizing American English because my site speaks in American English, and it's really important. And even, you know, someone from the UK or Australia or Canada, they may spell like color with a U,
Right.
or organize with a S, like small stuff like that. That also matters. So
Sure.
it's cool. You could be from wherever, or be located wherever they want to be located, but they need to be able to write in American English.
Sure.
So that's non-negotiable.
How critical is it in the title saying ghostwriting versus some other kind of writing? Because I've been a part of other internet groups that kind of perpetuate kind of this freelance lifestyle and show you how to do certain things, you know, blog writing, SEO writing, X, Y, and Z. Blog writing, they say, is easy to get. You can charge a lot more for SEO writing, right? So we're kind of blurring the lines between.
Sure.
I really want an SEO writer because it's all geared for SEO. What we're doing is I have a keyword that I want to see X amount of times and using some subheadings, and I want somebody who knows how to do that, so I'm not stuck like, oh, you didn't do this, or, you know, like X, Y, and Z. And so again, you get what you pay for.
Right.
With a ghostwriter, they're like, well, I'll just write some content and everything. So
Yeah.
again, it probably goes back to somebody just starting out who wants to work.
So I usually don't want an SEO writer because they may or may not do SEO how I want to do it.
Right.
So I just want someone that could like write. So typically, and this is why I think it may work well for what I'm doing. So I usually end up with like English majors or former journalists or people that write as their profession that are usually like much better writers than when I ended up hiring some sort of an SEO person.
Sure.
Because, well, I already said it, but I don't know what they know about SEO, and it may or may not be wrong. Maybe they know more than me, but I have a specific way that I want to do it.
Right.
So that said, I've never put SEO writing or anything about SEO at all. In fact, I don't even look. Now that you mention it, I realize I give them a keyword or a headline, and they write it, and I get it back, and I publish it. And I'm doing the KGR stuff. Jim's doing some keyword research for me, and I haven't told you yet, but like I published like 5 articles yesterday, and they all ranked from like 20 to 25.
Wow.
And they're, you know, none of them are, you know, thousands of searches, but they're like, you know, 10 to 50 or something like that.
Sure.
So anyway, the point is, the SEO writing, I haven't used it before in the headline, and I think just saying ghostwriter attracts like a broader range of people.
True. Sure.
Especially if they're just starting out. Like, let's say I have a girl working with me right now who I think she's working on her master's in like creative writing or something like that, and she just joined Upwork. And pretty sure she's never heard SEO before. So if she saw SEO writer, she wouldn't even look at the headline. Yeah. So that's like the answer to that, but test it, right? So it's super easy for you to just like put 2 job postings that are identical up and have one with one headline, have one with the other, and then you can look at the quality of the people.
That's true.
And then I would actually just test it, and then if one sucks, like, don't use it. Yeah,
sure.
And you just cancel that job, hire the person on the other one.
There you go.
Okay, so the other thing, good question on the headline. And I think across the board, like testing the headline is like a good thing. There's like no risk in doing it. You can just duplicate the post, and it takes like a couple seconds to do. The other thing is the actual body of the posting. Mine's pretty long and it's descriptive. It's probably 400 words or so. And if you actually look as a freelancer at the job postings in Upwork, they're usually really short and they may or may not be complete. A lot of times it looks like they're copy and pasted from a portion of like an org chart or roles and responsibilities or something that just to me, to me it sort of screams like the person that's hiring doesn't know what they're hiring for. So I mean, I've looked through some job postings and they're pretty bad. So the whole idea is my posting looks pretty good, and at the very end I also say I really like working with new freelancers to Upwork. A lot of people that have worked with me raise their rates afterwards. And I'm also interested in ongoing work. So if this trial works out, I really want to work with you. And the last thing to mention is, since I've been on Upwork for a while, I have a lot of good reviews as a client. Sure. So that may help me a lot to just get people. And essentially, you could do the same thing, right? You provide good feedback, you pay on time, and provide good direction. So I also have templates for the actual article that they're writing, sure. And I just copy and paste it. And all I have to do is change one title, and then the rest stays the same. Sure. I have style guidelines, right? So perhaps this has happened to you. Maybe you hire someone. You said, I want this article. It should sort of look like this one, and then they submit it to you, and maybe it's 1,000 words, and it's 2 paragraphs, right. And it just looks like a big wall of text. Right. Well, the style guidelines that I have sort of take that mystery out. So if they submit it and they obviously didn't put in the headings that I asked for, I don't like to use semicolons in my blog writing, just because it's a little pretentious to use semicolons, and although they have their place, so no one get upset. So I'm just don't use semicolons, and then occasionally people will use semicolons, and I'm go back and check out the style guidelines, use the semicolon, blah blah blah. Add more headings, break up the text, and then if they understand, that's someone that I can work with. If they make a mistake, it's okay, but it's more important if they take the feedback. Sure. So, all right, I said a lot. What questions do you have?
No, it's kind of answered a lot. I guess the main thing was, finding quality writers, paying a good price. I mean, those are the two big kind of intersecting theories behind this whole thing. And not having hired a ton of writers, I've hired 3 different writers now, so it's not a lot. And so you're bound to come across some people who are either very very new, have not written in the past, and so don't know how to do that, or one of my initial mistakes was just putting out a ad listing on Upwork and taking one of the first ones that came back, and they were not a native speaker, and so it was a lot of very simplistic sentences. This thing has blue things, and this thing has red things, and it was just oh my gosh. And so you're ending up it's all the information I can go find, it's just not having to reformat. So
sure.
No, the main thing was price versus quality. It's everything.
And I think and I like to pay fair prices. Sure. Some people will try and beat a freelancer up on whatever it is that they're trying to do. Right. They'll try and for me, I do guest posting service, and people will try and negotiate with me, which I don't do, so they can find somebody else to do it. But the point being, you can sort of lower. Jim's been showing this graph where the cost and quality meet, and what happens is if you let's say this is the cost right here and the quality, you can lower the price if you find the people that are inexperienced, because you're also paying them, right? It's still transactional, but you're paying them in good reviews. Sure. And I also have templates for reviews, right? So I never have to think, oh, what am I going to write for this person? I have 5 different pieces of feedback that I've given people in the past, and I just have a space where I fill in their name. Sure. So it's just I can find the one that sort of applies and put that in, and guess what? It doesn't matter if it's super close, because most people don't write good feedback either. So right. Most people are very short, and if I write 3 or 4 sentences and use the person's name, they're pretty happy. Yeah. One thing to go back to, so a lot of times what I do is I'll post the job, and then I'll just go away for a day or 2, and then I'll have maybe 10 or 15 different freelancers to choose from, and then I'll just take a quick look and see, a couple things like their ratings, if they have any, the number of jobs they have, but really, I look at their cover cover letter and the questions that I ask. So they can lie about everything else.
Right.
Because they can tell you anything they want, right?
Right.
So they can lie about the articles they've written or just anything about them. Their whole resume can be false. However, if you ask specific questions, then, well, they have to write those sentences.
Right.
So I just keep it simple, right? I don't use any of the stock questions. I'll ask things like, why do you think you're qualified to write on topic X? You don't have to give away too much. I mean, you could say, trying to think of something that's not too... I've been using like a metal detector example. Like I don't metal detect. I don't know anyone with the site, although they're out there.
Sure.
But let's just say like metal detecting, you could say, hey, do you have any interest in like metal detecting or like gold finding?
Right.
Any experience? That's super specific. I probably wouldn't like try and find that. But you can't ask things that are relevant like that. The other things that I like to ask are you familiar with, in quotes, like American English?
Yep.
And are you familiar with like American slang? And then they'll have to like provide some answer.
Sure.
Some people may say yes, and that's not that good of an answer. But if they say yes, I grew up in like Cincinnati, and I went to college somewhere, and yeah, I'm really familiar with American slang.
Right.
And that would answer
Native
the question.
speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So that's really good. And then you could put in whatever else you want. Now, one thing we haven't talked about is actually the formatting part, because you mentioned you spent time formatting the post after you got it back.
Right.
So what you should do is provide the style guidelines like I do. Provide a style guideline where you tell the writer how you want it generally formatted.
Sure.
So you probably, I know you're doing other formatting on your site with images and stuff like that, but you can tell them like, short paragraphs, put headings in. I want it to be submitted in a Word document, and you should be using like heading number 2 and heading number 3.
Sure.
Make sure there's a heading every 150 to 300 words, blah, blah, blah. You can make it as specific as you want.
Yeah.
So then a lot of times, for me, usually I could just like copy and paste it into WordPress, and then it's like 90% formatted right, and then I just have to tweak it.
Sure.
So,
excellent.
Yeah. Any other things you could think of, like hiring people or?
No, not really. That takes care of most of the questions. No. Yeah,
okay.
Not off the top of my head.
And then, as far as like pricing, I believe you could for the trial articles, I'll usually go for maybe like 600 to 800 words or so, and I'll put like a starting like bid. I don't know if that's the right term, but the price that I put is like $10.
Sure. And
most of the time, everything that I mentioned, you'll be able to find someone that'll bid for $10. Actually, you'll probably find like 15 people that'll bid for $10, and then you'll be able to figure out who you want. Now, the other thing that I've learned is some people just want the review, and they're like, I don't want to work for that cheap because, I'm a journalist and I need to get higher paying jobs, which I totally understand. And then other people are happy to maybe they are a freelancer and they're in like Asia or something, and they don't need to have as much income. They just want something regular that they could count on. So you can get them for an ongoing gig.
Sure. One thing I did just think of, is there a better post type to have an initial or a new writer write for you, for like a review post versus a informational post?
I haven't checked that out. I suspect the informational post will be easier because it's just more of a structured writing versus a review, which may or may not be something they are used to doing.
Sure.
So the informational is probably easier, but not necessarily recommended. Let's say you need like 50 reviews done.
Right.
Maybe you should give them the review.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you asked me earlier, it wasn't about pricing, it was before we started talking. It'll come back to me maybe, but my mind just went blank there for a sec.
Well, that's kind of what I did with that woman that I started working with. I sent her 2 articles, right, and one was a review and one was an informational post, just to see how she'd go about doing each.
Right.
And then if you can kind of curtail it from there, or tweak and modify your expectations from her,
right,
or your writer, whoever it happens to be, after you see them, and be like, oh, in the future I'd like it to look like X, Y, and Z, or this way, yeah. So.
Gotcha. And I remembered what you were asking about. So the really good writers, so this happened with the journalists that I've hired, they will ask where the article will be posted because they want to go check out the site and see what tone and style it is, and then they will change their writing so it matches. So the really good people will ask about that kind of thing, and if you have worked with someone for a little while, maybe you got them to write a couple articles for you, then you can basically say, actually, they're being posted here. You should go check out the content there because I want you to write in that style.
Right.
And to another, going back to what you mentioned about whether they write reviews or informational posts, the reviews could be a little bit more difficult. So you could use sort of like the perfect Amazon review framework that's on the Start Here page on the Site Project to give them an idea of what should be where in the structure.
Sure.
That should give them a really good idea. And then the other thing is you can give them a sample of exactly something on your site and say, I want it to be structured sort of like this. If it's a review post, you probably need to tell them like, here are the 4 different items that you need to write specs on.
Okay.
You can find the information on the Amazon page. There's bullet points. You can use the bullet points to formulate what you're writing, but put it in your own narrative and in your own words.
Sure.
So I think that covers most of it. The key is to put the job posting up, hire 4 people.
Sure.
And plan on keeping 1 or 2.
Yes.
So you can still use the content from the other 2, but most likely you're going to enjoy working with some of the people over the others. And, it's just a trial job. It's not any sort of major commitment or anything like that.
Right.
And finally, last thing is the person that you're emailing with who wants 3 cents a word, unless, basically I think it's too much, unless she knows exactly that specific product.
Sure.
And owns some of those products and stuff.
Right.
Otherwise, that's pretty expensive, in my opinion. I mean, it's borderline, but my take is I bet she's more experienced or has been getting a higher salary somewhere else. So she's like, well, I'm not going to do it unless I'm making 3 cents a word.
Sure.
So do you happen to know if she has a lot of experience? Or?
I think she's fairly new. I found her through a different site that I'm a part of as well. The same ones that preach, if you're ghostwriting, ask for this much. If you start SEO writing, you can command a lot more money. And so they kind of lay that groundwork that if you were quote unquote writing in a certain style, you can command more money.
Right.
And so she came back with initially with 15. I said it's too much, and then she came back right away and said, well, I'm a little flexible. I can work with other amounts.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of how we ended up getting those first couple articles done. So she's new, but not brand new, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. And what can you say what the site was that you were talking about?
Yeah, it's called Location Rebel.
Location Rebel. Okay. So, and I don't know a ton about the membership area or whatever.
Yeah.
But if I were to summarize, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's it helps people be freelancers, so they are location independent, right?
Right.
And my guess is the people that are taking the training are being trained to ask for more money. So you went to a place where they're being trained to ask for more money.
Right. They start you off in this blog writing realm, and then it's very short and sweet, and then they very quickly try and transition you out of that and go with more SEO approach and get more money so you can finance your lifestyle and be location independent.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so my cynical nature tells me that like they want people in that community to make more money, so the people that are there that are freelancers are asking for more money and going like higher up the food chain. I mean, the stuff that I'm having done for cheaper is like more basic stuff. Maybe she's a great writer and all that, but essentially like they're training the people at what is it, Rebel, Location Rebel?
Yeah.
Location Rebel to like ask for more money, which they're doing, and you went to a place where they're telling them to ask for more money.
Yeah,
so like now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. And then Upwork, they may come in like, you know, I heard about this freelancing thing.
Sure.
Upwork came up on a search and they registered.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool. Well, when are you going to try to hire some people?
I'll probably send something out today or write something up today and get it on Upwork, just because we're going to be out of town for the evening, so I'll be able to just kind of let it sit and marinate and collect some offers, and then I'll be able to review it on Thursday morning.
Okay, cool. Well, that sounds good. We'll check back in, and then we'll do another update to find out if whatever I told you works or if not.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, and let us know in the comments if you'd like the video format, or if we should change our uniform. Maybe we wear different shirts, different color.
I can't grow the hair, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe we'll have different wigs so you can tell, you know, who's who. But yeah, let us know in the comments if you like this, and maybe we'll do some more. Thanks.
Later.